I'm so glad for health. If you've ever been sick, health is it's a great reminder of how wonderful health can be, or how wonderful health should be. We're going to continue our discussion here about being after God's own heart. We're looking at David, the historical David. David, the musician who wrote a lot of the Psalms that we have in our Bibles. David, the greatest king that Israel ever had. And we're starting off with his childhood. Last week we looked at his anointing. He's anointed to be king, but he doesn't become king yet. He doesn't become king for another 15 or 20 years. And so there's this period of waiting. But there's a lot of other things that happen in David's life. I remember from my own childhood, I have, and you probably have some of these vivid memories from your younger years. This one in particular, I was probably about, I think, 11 or 12 years old. And me and my friend, who was a couple years older than me, were riding our bikes. And we lived in a small town that had a town square. And we would ride our bikes all over town. My friend, being a little bit older than me, he always rode faster. He had more muscle. He was taller than me. I don't remember what it was, but he could always ride faster than me. If there was a race, he was going to win. Well, this one particular day, we're riding to kind of towards the downtown area. We're going to go play, back when you had to put quarters in a machine to play video games. You remember the good old days? We were going down to this convenience store that had one of our favorite video games, and so we're riding our bikes down there. It's probably a mile or two to get there. And I remember this one day, as we were riding down this road that we'd probably ridden down hundreds of times before, that something was different about this day. As we're riding, I kind of catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. And I realize that it's a big dog coming at us full blast. And so, of course, if you're ever riding a bike and a dog comes chasing after you, what do? You stand up, you grab the handlebar, and you just start pedaling as hard as you can. And this dog comes running, and I can, how you kind of hear them growling and hear their feet rumbling as they're coming up closer to you, and he's getting closer to my back tire, and a second later, he's nipping at my left foot. I can feel him trying to bite my foot. And it was at that moment that I learned what my superpower was. Teleportation. At that moment, I don't know what happened in me, but my ability to turn potential energy into kinetic energy, the ability to do something magical happened, and I began to pedal so fast. All I know is I kind of blanked out for a minute, and by the time I came to, I was 3 blocks away, and my friend, who always rode faster than me, I couldn't figure out where he was. I finally looked behind me, and he was so far behind me, I don't know how I could possibly have outpedaled him. And we were going so fast, we just coasted the rest of the way to town, several blocks. Of course, my heart was pounding as fast as it could go, but it's a memory, and it is so clear in my mind because I was so afraid. And this was a big dog, and I'm pretty sure if he got a hold of me, that it probably would have been the end of my life. Fear is powerful, and it can do so many things to us, so many things for us, or cause us to do things. It's quite interesting, and fear is going to be a major component of what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to talk about probably what is one of the most well-known stories of all time, and that's the story of David and Goliath. David and Goliath. It starts in 1 Samuel chapter 17. We've got the armies of Israel on one hilltop and the armies of the Philistines on another hilltop. Opposite hilltops, preparing to battle each other. And there's this champion, this giant. It says, a champion named Goliath came out of the Philistine camp. His height was about, and I've changed these from what it says in your Bible to give us some modern measurements here. His height was about 9 feet 9 inches. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he wore a coat of scale armor, bronze, weighing about 125 pounds. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and he had a bronze javelin slung on his back. And he also had a spear. And the shaft was like a weaver's beam. If you don't know what a weaver's beam is, it's like the pole on a loom. You know, if you're making material, you're weaving all these things together, and it makes cloth, and they roll it up on a pole. That pole is called a weaver's beam. It's probably about the size of that post right there, as far as how big around it is. And so it's got the staff was like a weaver's beam, and its iron point, the point on it weighed 15 pounds. 15 pounds was just I don't have one. The pointy end of the spear, not the whole spear, the pointy part was 15 pounds. And so to try to put all this kind of in perspective to help us kind of grasp it, 15 pounds is about the size of like the biggest bowling ball. The biggest or heaviest regulation bowling ball you can use is 16 pounds for a regulation bowling game. 16 pounds. This is 1 pound below that. That's also about the weight. What might be more common for people is 2 gallons of milk. Carry 2 gallons of milk, carry both of them in one hand, and that's how much the pointy part, the metal part of this spear weighed. And what about his armor? His armor is 125 pounds. That's heavier than a bag of concrete. It's almost 2 bags of concrete. And if you've ever carried a bag of concrete, that thing is no joke, and you can't carry it very far, right? If you've had to haul one, a bunch of bags up and down the driveway for some job or whatever you're doing, and imagine that's your armor. You're just wearing that all day in battle with your bowling ball tipped spear, right? Now, some of this is probably easier for him to do because this guy is a giant, and I think the best place to go for this example is the Princess Bride. There is so many lessons to be learned from the Princess Bride. In the Princess Bride, you might remember there was a giant in the movie. He was played by Andre the Giant, who was a wrestler back in the day. But to give you some perspective on the size of these 3 guys, the first guy, let me get his name right, is Vincini. He's the guy that says, "Inconceivable," right? If you remember the movie. Please raise your hand if you've seen The Princess Bride. All right, if your hand's not up right now, you need to go out, you need to get The Princess Bride, because the rest of this lesson's not going to make any sense. No, just kidding. This part. Anyway, so that's the guy in the front of these 3 men. He is 5 feet 2 inches tall. The guy in the middle is the character Inigo Montoya. He's the guy that says, "I am Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Right? That guy. He is 6 feet tall. He's about the same height as me. And behind him stands Andre the Giant, who is 7 feet 4 inches tall. So imagine if Andre the Giant was standing here, his head would be, right above mine. That's 7 feet 4 inches tall. A little bit taller than him is the world's tallest man, who is a Chinese basketball player named Sun Mingming. He is 7 feet 9 inches tall. And so to give you a comparison, y'all know The Rock, right? The Rock? The Rock is 6'4" or 6'5", so he's 4 or 5 inches taller than me. This is Ming standing next to him. 7 feet 9 inches tall is Sun Mingming. Goliath was 9 feet 9 inches tall. I mean, so yeah, you're getting the picture here, right? We're talking some big people. At the Creation Museum, there is a replica spear, and there's this poster kind of board here. I'll get out of the way a little bit of how tall Goliath would be. And here's a picture of about a 5'10", 6 foot tall man standing next to him. His head comes about to his belt. Goliath would be a huge, huge, huge man. He was a Goliath. He was a giant. Goliath stood and he shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul?" He says, "Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." And then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and they were terrified. Terrified. How many? I would be terrified. Fear is a powerful, powerful thing. Fear can cause us to it can cause us to become blind to everything else. We become so focused on the one thing that we are afraid of that we will forget about everything else that is going on in the world. The more afraid you feel, the more fearful things seem. It's like this self-defeating thing within us. I'm scared, and therefore things seem more frightening. And things seem more frightening, so I'm more scared. Fear burns things into our memories, like being chased by a dog on our bicycle. Fear causes the fight or flight response. We've talked about those before. But it seems that the flight response is how we typically respond to things. We're fearful of a situation. We're fearful. Maybe there's a conversation that we need to have, a difficult conversation we need to have with somebody, but we just don't want to go do it, and so we don't. Instead, we avoid the conflict. We would rather lose a friendship than spend some time having a difficult conversation talking with someone. Or maybe in the workplace, something starts to not go well with work, whatever it may be, whether it's you, whether it's work, whether it's a workmate, whether it's a boss. We'd rather just not deal with it. Instead, we'll just go get another job. Or it's worse if you're the boss. Maybe you've got an employee that's not quite doing things the way you think they should be, or whatever. Instead of addressing the issue, instead of trying to help the person improve, instead of trying to coach the person and mentor the person, a lot of times we'll just kind of dismiss the person. We'll just let them go, because it's easier to do that than it is to wade and walk into difficult things. People are also paralyzed by fear, and that's exactly what's going on with the Israelite army here. This guy's coming out, and they are paralyzed with fear. They are focused in on this problem that's in front of them, this giant, and they've forgotten everything else that God has done for them. They are paralyzed because of this current threat, but not everyone. Not everyone. David is visiting the front lines. He brought some food and supplies to his older brothers who were there as part of the army. David is still a teenager. He's still a teenager who tends a flock of sheep, but his father sent him to go check on his older brothers and to see how the battle's going. And this is the situation that David walks into. Twice a day for 40 days, Goliath comes out and he taunts the Israelites, and nobody responds, and so he goes back to camp. And then later in the evening, he comes out again and taunts the Israelites, and no one responds, and he goes back to camp. For 40 days, over and over and over, the Israelite army just stands there, terrified, fearful. But not David. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. I, your servant, will go and fight him." And then shortly after, all the laughter died down. Everybody's like, "Yeah, right, okay. That's yeah, okay, David, yeah." That's my part, after the laughter died down. Right? Saul replied, "You're not able to go," he says, "you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." Let's talk about equipping for a moment. What is it that equips us for certain things in our lives? People are equipped through two things. They're equipped through both advantage and affliction. People are equipped through advantage and through affliction. Advantage is pretty easy. We probably understand it. You might think of maybe the word giftedness or something like that. Paul speaks about this in a few places. In Romans 12, he goes through a whole list. He says, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. He says, if your gift is prophesying, then prophesy. If your gift is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, then lead diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. And in 1 Corinthians 7, he says, each of you has your own gift from God. One of you has one, and another has another. Each of you has your own gift. Some of you here, if I asked you to lead a song, to lead us in worship, you could probably do it, no problem. You're musically talented, you have an ear for song, maybe you can read notes, maybe you can't, but you could probably start singing a song well enough that the rest of us could chime in. But I bet there's some of you here that you're like, there's no way. Do not ask me to do that, because that is not something that I'm gifted in. That is not a skill set that I have. Maybe with a lot of work and a lot of effort, you could probably learn, but it's just not naturally in your skill set. The other one is affliction, and this might seem a little more strange. Because we learn in affliction, we learn through hardship or failure. It can be hardship, it could be failure, it could be a mix of those. There was a bricklayer who filed a claim with his medical insurance company after an injury on the work site. He had been working alone. This is the report he wrote up. He said, "Of the day of my accident, I was working alone on the roof of the building. When I completed my work, I discovered that I had about 500 pounds of bricks left over. So instead of taking them down handful by handful, going down 6 stories and coming back up, going down 6 stories and coming back up, I figured I would use the barrel that's attached to the pulley system that's attached to the side of the building." So he loads the barrel up with all the bricks. He goes down to the bottom floor, and then carefully, attentively, he holds on tightly to the bricks, and then he unties the rope. Well, those 500 pounds of bricks offset the fact that he only weighs about 175 pounds. And he said it was at that moment that the barrel began to descend rather quickly. It happened so suddenly that I lost my presence of mind to let go of the rope, and so I began to ascend up the side of the building at a rapid speed. And somewhere about the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming down, which explains my broken collarbone and shoulder. And I kept going. It only slowed me down a little bit, and I kept going. And I kept going until my hand went into the pulley, which explains my 2 broken fingers. And at that same moment, the barrel hit the ground, and the bottom fell out of it. And so the 500-pound barrel just went from weighing 500 pounds to weighing 50 pounds. And so I began to descend down the side of the building at a rapid speed. And about the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming back up, which explains my broken leg and my broken ankle. It only slowed me down a little bit because I crashed on the pile of bricks at the bottom, which explains why I have 2 broken vertebrae. And as I laid there on this pile of bricks, moaning in pain, unable to move, staring up at the barrel, all I could think was, I'm so glad that this is over. And I let go of the rope. I don't know if that's happened to any of you. I hope it hasn't. I'm not going to tell you that everything in life happens for a reason. I'm not 100% sure that the Bible supports that view. I've heard that view. I'm sure I've probably said it a few times in my life, but as I reflect on it, I'm not sure I believe that, and I'm not sure the biblical witness supports that. We do have Romans 8, where it says, "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him." We know in all things. We know in advantage and in affliction and in affliction, God works for the good. It doesn't say God causes the affliction. Sometimes that's our own doing. Right? Sometimes I make a poor choice, and the consequences of that are something that I wish wouldn't happen. Sometimes it is a matter of coincidence, happenstance. And however, the greatest good that comes from affliction, most of the time, is a lesson. Sometimes I just need to learn what not to do. And the only way I'm going to learn what not to do is to go through some kind of affliction. Think about, a kid putting their hand on the stove for the first time. They learn, don't put your hand on the stove because it's probably hot. Or maybe those less than desirable situations have taught us a valuable lesson, or maybe it's honed a skill. Many of you would probably like to be better at conflict. You don't like conflict. That's part of the reason why you avoid it. But you know, the only way to become better at handling conflict, do you know how? It's the same way you get better at riding your bike. It's the same way you get better at fishing. It's the same way you get better at anything else. You have to go through it. Sometimes the only way to get better is to go through. Sometimes the only way to get better is to go through. David thinks so. He says to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it and I rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, I struck it and I killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." In the case of David, it's affliction that has equipped him for this moment. No one wants a wild predator to come and attack their livestock. No one wants that. No one wants to go chase after a lion or a bear to rescue a sheep. No one wants to fight a lion or bear who has turned against, right? If we all had to take a vote right now, we're looking for volunteers to go chase after bears, it's like none of us would go sign up, except the crazies. You know, if you're one of those, that's okay. But we would not volunteer for this. This is not something that we would choose to do, yet it is something, in this case, that has happened in David's life. Despite those bumps and bruises that I'm sure David got, I mean, it's funny because we read these stories sometimes and we're like, oh yeah, he just went out and killed a lion. Later, some other time, there was a bear. Yeah, he just went out and killed a bear. He seems pretty cool about it. I'm sure this was more than just say, I'm going to go kill a bear and boom, you're done. I'm sure there were scratches, there were bumps, there were bruises, there was damage done to David in these episodes. But it's this affliction that causes him to be equipped for Goliath. And despite those bumps and bruises, David is confident. Being after God's own heart means being confident. Confident that yesterday's affliction has prepared you for today's challenges. Confident that yesterday's affliction has prepared you for today's challenges. I don't know what all those afflictions are. I don't know what all kinds of difficult circumstances you've been in your life. There's a whole wide variety of them. Some of them are more weighty than others. But whatever affliction you've been through, whatever trial you've been through, whatever hardship you've been through, I'm not going to say that, well, it happened for a reason. I'm going to say that being through that has equipped you for something. It's taught you something. It's helped you learn a skill, how to do something better, how to not do something. Or maybe it's equipped you to be the person who's supportive of someone else who goes through something similar. And it may be something else. But that affliction of yesterday has prepared you for the challenge of today. Then David took his staff in his hand. He chose 5 smooth stones from the stream. He put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag. And with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you." Listen, he doesn't say with sling and rock. He says, "I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands." And as the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag to take out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down to the ground. David was victorious. Probably not a surprise to most of us because we've probably heard this story before. But there's just so much we don't get when we just kind of skim through these verses of the Bible. We got to try to put ourselves in the position of some of these characters and ask ourselves, what would it be like? You think David was afraid? Yeah, I think he was afraid. But he didn't let fear stop him from doing what needed to be done. He didn't let fear interfere with his confidence in who the Lord is and what the Lord can do. He didn't let fear stop him from acting, stop him from conflict, from avoiding the conflict, from removing himself from the situation. Fear didn't cause him, which he certainly could have, to decide it was somebody else's problem to deal with. He wasn't in the army. He's a teenager. He wasn't even part of the army. He was there delivering snacks to his brothers. It was not his responsibility. But instead, David looked at his past and he considered how the lion and the bear had prepared him for Goliath. Without the lion and bear, David would have never been prepared for Goliath. But the lion and the bear had prepared him. And he stepped out on the field with confidence. And we need to be people who are like that. We need to be people who are confident that the Lord is for us. He is so much for us, so much for us, so much for us. But we walk around in fear that God is against us. He's not. He is for us, and He is for the victory. And this isn't being confident in ourselves, because we don't want to be puffed up. We need to have some humility. But this is being confident in what the Lord is able to do in us and through us. God can do amazing, amazing things. So as we look at the heart of a man who's after God's own heart, and there's so many other lessons we could take from David and Goliath. This is one of probably many, many, many. We could spend hours talking about all the little details that are in this lesson. But this is one that we can take with us this morning, that we need to be confident that the Lord is with us. We need to be more like David in this situation and less like the entire Israelite army. Any one of them probably could have gone forward and defeated Goliath. Any one of them could have. But it was only a teenage boy who had the confidence of the Lord to step out into conflict and to win the day. And that's what I pray for you. You'll step out into conflict. And I know it's hard, and I know it's scary. And I know it's not always easy, and you're not always going to do it right. But my encouragement to you is to trust in the Lord and to be confident that He is on your side. He is so much for you. He's so much in love with you that He sent His Son. He sent His Son to come and to live on earth and to die in your place. There could have been one human being on this planet, and that's you. And Jesus would have come and He would have taken your place on that cross. Be confident that the Lord is for you. He's shown it in so many ways. Let's pray this morning and we'll be done. Lord, I thank You for blessing us, and I thank You that You are for us. We pray that You will help us to have confidence that we know there's trouble, there's hardship, there's trials in life, and sometimes we want to rail against You and ask You, why are You letting this happen to me? But help us to look for another possible solution that maybe through this event, while it may not be coming from You, but that through whatever the hardship is, that we can become stronger, we can become wiser, we can become equipped for the challenges ahead. Paul says in Romans 12 to be patient in affliction. Lord, help us to be patient. Help us to seek you out when we are in affliction. And when that's gone and we find ourselves out in the world and challenges come before us, help us to seek you out then as well. And when we see someone else going through hardship and we can relate to that, help us to come alongside of them, to hug them, to support them, to care for them. And as we do that together as a family, as we do that to and for others in our world, that it will shine the light of your love everywhere we go. We want people to know that you are for them. But Lord, we pray that you help us to be courageous, even in the face of fear and uncertainty, that we'll be courageous and trustworthy, trusting in your love and your care for us. It's in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, thank you.